Welcome to Parenting on Purpose, a podcast where we discuss parenting topics to help you raise your children intentionally so that they find their unique purpose, place, and contribution to the world. My guests will be sharing childhood stories that have impacted their adult life to help us understand why parenting on purpose is so important. I will also answer your questions on how to raise children to be successful inside and outside the classroom. I'm your host, Abiera Bolu. I've been a teacher for over 15 years, teaching children as young as 4 all the way to age 18. I believe that a successful life is a life lived on purpose for a purpose.
Good evening, Dr. Sam. Well, I should say good morning, actually, because we are speaking to you all the way from New Zealand. And I'm in the UK here. Guys, this is so exciting. I have Dr. Sam Ekundayo, the purpose preacher, with us today. And he's here to talk to us about purpose. And as you know, my listeners, and you know this very much about me, I'm all about raising your children on purpose. And when I say raising your children on purpose, I don't just mean intentionally, which is crucial. I also mean raising them with a sense of purpose. You know, Dr. Sam would agree with me, we are all born with a purpose. And the truth is, if we are raising our children and we're neglecting the part of that, you know, the part that says they have a purpose, then what are we really doing? So I've got Dr. Sam here. First of all, I just want him to tell us about you. I'll let you introduce yourself because you'll do a better job than me. Go.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor. My name is Dr. Samuel Ekundayo, and the mandate of God on my life is to help people discover their purpose so that they can maximize their potentials. I am a speaker, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach. I'm a writer as well. I'm an author of 5 books, the latest of which is Purpose in Crisis, Uncommon Secrets to Finding and Fulfilling Purpose in Times of Adversity. On the side of all of that, I'm also a senior lecturer where I teach in one of New Zealand's higher institutions. I've been doing that for years now, and I enjoy it. Also recently, I'm the founder and president of the School of Purpose and Influence, where we raise kingdom citizens, responsible kingdom citizens, helping them find their purpose so that they can build transgenerational influence in our generation and, of course, the ones to come. So I breathe, I live, I eat, I drink purpose. Every single day, I feel the message that God has given me is to help people find their purpose, get clarity about it so that they can actually live a life of influence in their generation and the ones to come. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm married and with 2 boys, yes. 2 amazing boys.
Amazing.
I married a woman I call my treasure. I call her my treasure. I've been calling her treasure before we got married. I still call her treasure to date. So it's a joy to be here.
Honestly, you can see why I absolutely admire and adore Dr. Samuel Ekundayo. Like if you see him with his family, the way he speaks about his wife, it just makes so much sense when you look at him and look at the life he lives and the fact that he's living on purpose. It makes you want to find your purpose if you don't have it. So thank you so much. Always such a pleasure.
Thank you.
You know, I'm just thinking, you know, my thing I found, you know, a lot of people talk about purpose. And a lot of people have started to realize, you know what, I need a purpose for my life. What am I doing? I just want you to explain, because I don't think some people have the words for this. How does somebody feel when they don't know their purpose? Just explain that. Yeah.
It's a place no one wants to be, really, because we have been created to live on purpose, for purpose, and with purpose. When we are not living with our purpose, and when we haven't found our purpose, there is this void.
Yeah.
There's this emptiness. There's this meaninglessness that often leads to depression and sometimes suicidal thoughts, because you start to question your reason for existence. The French call it your raison d'etre, the reason why you're alive, the reason why you're born. And it's only a matter of time when life situations begin to get tough and you start to face adversity, then you start to ask this very powerful question that everyone in life would have at least asked at one point or the other. why am I here?
Wow.
Is there all there is to life? And such was my story way back. As a 14-year-old, I had this dream to be a professor. And because I was inspired by the people who teach, and every time I closed my eyes, I would see myself in front of a large hall, just teaching people. So I thought to myself, that must be that I'm born to be a teacher and a professor. So I just born that dream to be a professor, and I started to call myself a professor since the age of 14. And of course, that would mean that I would, go through the ropes to be a professor, which means I'll finish my bachelor's degree, do a master's degree, do a Ph.D, which was exactly what I did. I finished that Ph.D. at the age of 26, finished writing the thesis at 26, graduated at 27, and the void returned. That emptiness, that emptiness
I love
returned.
that.
And you know what's very powerful about that? I didn't feel the void while I was doing that. And it's something that someone should know here. Some people are busy but not effective. Some people are making motion but not progress. Some people are like the rocking chair, going nowhere, but they're just busy with a squeaky sound, cuckoo, cuckoo. And people think that they're actually living life. And because that void isn't showing up at that particular point in time because of that business, the noise around, the praise that people are giving them because of whatever it is that they are doing, the journey of the rat race and so on. But after a while, you realize the void will return because nothing else was meant to satisfy apart from the purpose of God. And such was my case in 2012, 2013. And I carried that void for about 4 years. So I say that to mean that some people can carry meaninglessness, insignificance, void, and emptiness for quite a number of time. In fact, some people carry it to their grave. And that's what we don't want to happen to you. That's why we're having this podcast. In 2016 was when I decided I was going to do something about it. And I went to God in prayer, asking God, say, Lord, why have you created me?
Yes.
Why have you created me? And in one of those days, on the 16th of December, 2016, to be very precise, God spoke to me. And he said, help people discover their purpose. That was the day that everything changed in my life. That was the day I started to live for something way more than the rat race. That was the day I started to live for something way more than my salary or the next position or the next title in line on my job. I started to live free, just like that eagle in all of his powers and glories at the expanse of the sky, just going from left to right, north, south, east, and west, spreading its wings and flying in all of his glory and power. And that's what happens to you when you find your purpose. You could literally live 1,000 years and not feel it.
No, that's, oh my gosh, just hearing you talk. As for me, I just feel like if anyone is listening and they don't have a purpose, they will want to know. I believe you want to know. But I'm here, honestly, for the children, very importantly. I know that adults listening to us that probably think, but I don't know my purpose, but I want to find my purpose. But at the same time, we also have children. They're children. So my question to you, and this is where my thinking also comes into play and what really got me drawn to you. When are we given our purpose? At what point? We might start to ask, like you did at age 14, or maybe when something difficult happens. But when is that purpose deposited in us? When does that happen?
Great question. Great question. Purpose was given at birth. Purpose was given, in fact, way before birth, way before we were born. And we could see that. I'm a preacher, so you would allow me quote scriptures. We could see that in the scriptures several times. God showing to us that he had a purpose for us way, way, way before we were even born, way before our dad and mom even thought about having anything together. He said to Jeremiah, he said, before I formed you in the womb, Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, I knew you. The word knew there is very powerful. It said, in other words, that word knew means I was intimate with you. In other words, I was already having a fellowship with you before I formed you in the womb. Isn't that so powerful? The meaning of that is I've been having you in my thoughts quite intimately, been thinking about what you're going to do, be thinking about why I need to create you, been literally thinking about you day and night. The word "new" there is the same word that the King James would often use for something that happens between a man and a woman. That's sexual Yeah, I knew you, which means I've been having intimate relationship with you. I've been thinking about you long and hard, and he says, and then he says, I've appointed you. Before I formed you, I had appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Speaking about how God literally knew what we were going to do even before he created us. And that's why I always define purpose as the mind of the creator of a thing for making a thing. In other words, what the creator had in mind before making that thing. Emphasis on the word before.
Yeah.
Before. So God was very sure. He had thought about us, and then he decided, okay, this thing that I've thought about, let me make it. And
Yeah.
that's why I always say God is an artist. In fact, one of the opening lines of this book that I've just written, The Purpose in Crisis, is that God is an artist. And as with every artist, they often make things twice. All right. They make things twice. Number one, they make it first in their head, in their mind, and then they make it in reality. And God is just a perfect artist. Makes us first in his mind and then bats us into reality. And that's why you would see that when God was creating man, he said one very powerful word. He said, let us make man in our image. In other words, he was literally pouring out his heart, pouring out what he had in mind about man. And he literally started to declare the reason why he wanted to make man. He said, let them do this. Let them have dominion. Let them reign over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air. Let them be fruitful, multiply. And guess what? In verse 28, after he was done creating man, he started to literally declare the very things he talked about in verse 26 before he created man as the blessings for man in verse 28. Isn't that awesome? Talking about an intentional God who knew why he created man and literally did the very same thing after he created man. So God is a God of purpose.
But it's so true. Even if people are sitting there thinking, oh, I don't really know how God thinks and all that, think about how you think before you make, it's so true. I remember very clearly this passage that I love it, scripture where it says, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. I remember when it really made more sense to me, I was speaking to my husband and we're talking about a business we wanted to create. And we had talked about this business inside out. This is how we'll do it. It look like this. We were talking back and forth, back and forth. Eventually, I said to my husband, oh my gosh, by the time this business actually comes out, people will think we just birthed this business. Meanwhile, before it was formed, we knew it. Wow. Inside out. In fact, we know what the purpose of it, and that's the way in which we're designing it to meet a purpose. You don't make something. You have a purpose for it. Then what are you really making? So I'm totally with you, and I love the way you explain it. Honestly, Purpose in Crisis. Let's just quickly tell people how they can get that book, because I know it's worth the read, and I'm going to get it. So
thank you.
How we can get it.
Awesome. It's on Amazon. So on any Amazon store that is close to you, for you in the UK, if you go onto amazon.co.uk, you'll be able to get one for you. If you're in the US, I think even in the UK, you can order from Barnes and Noble. I think in about 40,000 bookstores worldwide. And if you're in Nigeria as well, the best place you can get it is at Roving Heights. They will ship to any part of Nigeria that you're in. All you need to do is go onto their website, order from it, pay there, and put your address there. They will calculate the shipping cost and everything and send it to you straight to your door. So that's how to get Purpose in Crisis.
Yes, I can vouch, because honestly, I've listened to Dr. Sam so much. I know, and you've already listened, so go and get the book, definitely. So I just want to ask you, if you think about with children, so before they were formed in the womb of their mom, God knew them and gave them a purpose.
Yes.
So my question now is, they are born with a purpose. Mom and dad, what are you now supposed to do? If this child was born with a purpose, you don't know what that purpose is. What's your role, really? What are you supposed to do?
Wow. Very, very, our roles as parents is very powerful. We must educate our kids about purpose. That's number one. we must educate them. We must let them know that they are special, they are unique, they are important in the world, and there is a purpose for them. They have a purpose. God created them with a purpose in mind. In fact, one of the affirmations our boys read every day, in fact, the first line of that affirmation, apart from the scriptures that they quote, is that I have a purpose. Yes. So they already know the meaning of the word purpose. Yes. At age 7 and age 6. I'm sorry, 6 and 5. They're going to 7 and 6 now. They already know the meaning of the word purpose. So they say it every morning, I have a purpose, I have a purpose, I have a purpose. Even if they don't quite know what that purpose is, it's very evident that they're now aware of what purpose means. They know what purpose means, and it's only a matter of time they will find out. And that's why I feel like as parents, it's our job to make our kids very aware. And again, it's a major source of self-confidence and self-esteem for them when they know they have a purpose, because then it means that they know that their life is worth something. They are important, they are valuable in the world. And that's our role as parents. While we may, for instance, not really help them find their purpose, which we should try if we can, locate what their gifts are and help them, tell the way of God enough to be able to ask God about their own purpose and get clarity about it. We should, absolutely. But if we're not able to, maybe while under our roof, they are not able to really pinpoint what that is, we should point them in that direction of purpose so that they can seek God for themselves. The Bible talked about Abraham. He said, I know Abraham. He will command his children after me. And God was saying it with so much zest and so much passion because he knew Abraham, and that's the sort of thing I feel God should say about us as parents. God should be saying something like, I know this guy that I put these kids in care of. I know him. I know he would. I know them. I know this lady. I know they will command these children in the path of my purpose. That should be the kind of vote of confidence God should have about us.
So good. I think it's so important that our children, I've got 2 boys myself. I love the fact that you mentioned affirmations. I love the fact that you are telling them that they have a purpose, even if they don't know exactly what it is. The first thing is knowing. I'll tell you this. Growing up as a child, I was one of those children that you could describe as strong-willed, and you couldn't pull me down.
We can tell.
I knew there was something inside me. There's some children, and the same thing with adults. There's something special inside you. So every time the people try to project something that is not you onto you, you reject it. So this is what tends to happen with people. They tend to reject it when they think this thing you're projecting on me is not me.
It's not me.
Or unfortunately, they accept it and let it shape them, and then they become hidden.
That's the dangerous part.
That's the dangerous one. So you either get the child that is labeled rebellious, that's rejecting it, or you get the child that is accepting it and suppressing who they really are.
Yes.
That's the problem. But when you tell your child that they have a purpose, they understand that this thing that's special in them should not really be ignored. And it also makes the parents aware that my child has a purpose, therefore I shouldn't project something else onto them.
Yes.
So I agree with you that it's so important for parents to realize our children have a purpose. So I have to be very careful to create a rebellious child or a compliant child by projecting something on them that's not them. So I would say, apart from letting the child know that they have a purpose, what else would you say, or what else do you do that helps? You mentioned gifts, so that's where I'm going to. What else do you do with your children that help them realize what their purpose might be, even if they can't find it themselves right now, or you can't?
Thank you, Ibre. Inside my book here, I've shared about 6 places to find your purpose and 6 places to look at to find your purpose. And one of them is looking within. And within talks about your temperaments, your gifts, what many people call talents. In other words, God's endowment and grace over your life. And I feel as parents, we have the responsibility. Yes, it's a responsibility to help our kids discover their, what I call superpowers in kids' terms. All right, their superpowers. And when we begin to become conscious of their purpose, all right, then we will be more intentional about those superpowers. All right, intentional about the things.
I can see you about it. Please, because this is worth quoting and quote, because I say this and you've said it so beautifully. Once, please say it again, Dr. Sam.
All right. I said, if we are conscious about their purpose,
Yes.
right, and all of us in the house and the family are conscious about the topic of purpose, then we will be intentional in helping them find their superpowers. It will come to consciousness. You know, like my wife and I, we always keep talking about it. We think Shimilore is good in this. We think he actually doesn't quite like this. We think Fermi, even though Shimilore likes to do this, Fermi doesn't quite like this one.
Yes.
You know, we're always in that,
Yeah.
you know, having that sort of conversation because it's our joy that, you know, for them to discover that gift early and begin to be a blessing to their world and have the esteem that is required to fulfill purpose, have the self-confidence, have the love for God, the passion for people, the love for people as well, to be able to put all of that together and begin to add value to lives, even no matter how young they are, and that they discover that. And that's very, very important. In fact, was it yesterday? So on Sunday, we normally have family time together, play together. We have family time most of the time, but Sundays we are very intentional to guard that time. And we were playing YouTube videos, YouTube clips of young preachers, because we've noticed that our first boy, he loves speaking, he loves talking. And we've decided, okay, we're going to be playing videos of inspirational speakers. And yesterday, my wife just thought about, okay, how about, you know, young kids preaching? And then we started to play different tapes. We saw how excited both of them, of course, both of them were, you know, and they were talking about what they were talking about. And they were, you know, telling us, oh, Daddy said this, Daddy said that, Mommy said this, is that. You know, and you can see the joy in their faces. Of course, that's us trying that out. Okay, next time we'll be swimming, next time will be soccer, next time we'll be this and that. And from there, who knows, we'll find something like that they would love and enjoy doing. One of the things we've noticed about my first son, for instance, is this commitment to memory. Oh my goodness. In fact, one of their favorite things to do is to do word search, word puzzles, right? And even things I can never find. Like, I'm not even like, I'm a PhD holder. But these guys, I mean, there was a time I thought there must be something these guys are doing to cheat. So I decided to read out all the answers at the back. Like, I'm not kidding. So while they were asleep, I went to go reap out all the answers at the back. You know, for if you've ever seen all those word search books, the answers are always on the back. So I reaped out everything. And the next day, I gave it to them as I would. I said, okay, you're doing two word search today. They finished at exactly the usual time. In fact, they finished fast. I'm like, that was when I realized that this is
there is just something unique. Oh my gosh, it's so crucial. I love it. I love what you said, because when you're conscious of it, you observe them, you become intentional, and you do exactly the same thing we do at home. You now start to expose them to opportunities, create opportunities as well. And I love what you said. I'm going to just pick up on this, because in creating those opportunities, you watch how they react. You don't then try and force or orchestrate them in those opportunities, because sometimes parents think, oh, my child seems to be good at speaking. I'm going to create an opportunity and I'm going to say, now speak louder. You know, sometimes we just control it so much. But the good thing that you said is you allow them to enjoy the joy and expression in it. And if tomorrow they want more joy from it, they can watch it again. And if tomorrow, the next day, they think, you know, I don't want that, it doesn't mean they will not become speakers. It means they don't want it then. So I feel like sometimes in our parenting, we can be quite controlling as adults, and that control doesn't allow the child to become. And I think about it, and this is what you're saying about, you know, we have a God-given purpose, it's in us.
Yes.
What you need to do as a parent, if you look at a farmer, for example, is the seed has been put in, you water it, let the plant grow
and blossom.
That's the key thing. And sometimes in our parenting, we don't believe there's a seed, so we just try and start putting our own seed. You know, if we even see the seed, we're like, what's this in here? We take it out. You know?
That's dangerous. That's very dangerous.
Or we put our seed to suppress the seed that was already there, or we water, and then as we water, we sit, we watch, we try, you know. Really need to believe, water
Yes,
and
I love this illustration of the seed and the watering of the seed. I think
mm.
is very important. I also love to see it as handing the compass to them and teaching them how to use the compass.
Oh,
And because purpose is all about
yes.
becoming who I always say purpose is literally closing the gap between who you are now at whatever point in your life and who God really says you are. It's a journey. It's not a one-stop shop. It's closing that gap into becoming who God has created you to be. So part of our role as friends is to hand them the compass and show them how to use that compass, saying, hey, this is who God is. He gave you purpose. And, at any point in time, you can, your role is to go to him and get clarity. And as your parent, I will support you. I would help you. I'm so grateful to God for my parents. They never enforced anything on me. Of course, as Nigerian parents, they had this, at a point where my dad said something like, oh, if you study physiotherapy, I think he had just had about physiotherapy and how people are going to the UK to be physiotherapists for sport clubs and how they were making good money. So my dad was like, if you study physiotherapy, I will sponsor you to the UK and all of that. I think at a point in time, he realized he had said the wrong thing and he just completely, wouldn't say all of that again. And then that was when I started to, had my own freedom to say, oh, no, Dad, I don't want to do physiotherapy.
Ah, I
you
love
know?
what you said for two reasons. One of the reasons that, our parents sometimes in their love for us, they want to help us. So they want to point us in a direction that they think is
Yes.
good. And I think that's normal. But we just have to be aware. And yes, it's out of what we consider to be love, right? But then
Yes.
we also have to realize as parents that love has nothing to do with control.
No,
It's
no, no.
completely opposite. So the minute your dad realized that, oh,
Mm.
he stepped
He
back.
pulled back.
So
Yes. He
that's
just
what,
handed me the compass.
yes. And that's what we say to parents that even if you overstep, which we sometimes do, let's not call that love. Let's realize, oh, I've stepped over the mark of love. I've gone into fear and control. I'm going to pull back.
Mm.
And that's all we can do. I love that.
Yes.
So I don't want our listeners to miss this because I've heard these 6 ways to find your purpose. You've given us one now. Look within. Let's have the next one.
Look within is still a lot, and there is one aspect of look within that I want to share because parents would benefit from it, but the consciousness of it would also help them help their children. So look within everybody is this thing that I call the dimension of God on your inside. God gave it to me as a unique revelation. I've never had it from
I've
anyone.
never heard it.
Exactly. And it was I was studying Genesis chapter 2 that day, which is literally the practical account of how God made man. That was where he talked about, and God formed man from the dust. And, so in chapter 1, he said God formed man and never went beyond that, right? In 2, he literally said how God formed man, put dust together and all of those things. And then in verse 7, he said, and God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. I was reading that, and as usual, every time I'm reading scriptures, I'm always questioning God. I remember that day I was questioning God. I was saying, God, did you truly put does that breath mean that you put your entire self inside of man? And God said, no. If I put my entire self inside of man, that man will become capital God.
Yeah.
So what then did you do? He said he impacted a part of himself inside every man. So every man, whether you're a Christian or not, whether you're born again or not, you carry a part of God. There is a dimension of God that you carry. So, I decided I was going to go deeper into what that truly meant. And God said, there are some unique characteristics that I have that I've imparted in every human being. So every human being has something about God that they carry. The meaning of that is there is an ability of God that every human being carries. I'm going to say that again quite slowly. There is an ability of God that every human being carries. That means there is something every human being, 8 point something billion of us all over the world, there is at least one thing that each of us do or does at the level of capital God.
Wow.
That's why I couldn't let this one go. I just
Wow.
had to share that. Parents watching me, there is something you do at the level of capital God. Trust me on this one. I know you may have looked at yourself ordinary, maybe because of the report of your teachers and the report of some of your parents and uncles and aunties. They've called you average, called you non-entity, called you stubborn, and giving you all these kind of names. As a result, you don't see any value in yourself. And this is very hard to believe. I know. I'm a coach to many people, and it's taken us a lot of time to crack this thing that I'm sharing with you. But when we are done, you see people expressing themselves in all of their own glories, literally coming out and seeing this dimension of God in their life that they've never experienced before. And as a result, it's like they could almost spread their wings and start flying. Literally, it's like a newborn baby when you discover that thing. And that's why I'm sharing it to you right now, so that you come to the consciousness of it. There is something you do at the level of capital God. In other words, there is also something your child does. There is an ability your child also has, at the level of capital God. This is what you do, or that what your child does, that by the time they begin to do it, right, you would almost feel like there is an extraordinary power backing them up. There is literally a divine power backing them up. For me, it's speaking. Every time I speak, I always say this: there is no way you will hear me speak and your life will remain the same. It's literally impossible. I may literally even repeat a whole message that you heard the last time, but the day you hear me speak the same message, preach the same message, you will not remain the same again. It's a gift. It's a dimension of God on my inside. It's a superpower. It's a divine endowment. And your child has something. For them, for some children, it's cooking. For some, it's writing. It's the way they think. It's the way they analyze things. It's whatever it is. There is a dimension of God. The closest anyone ever got to this dimension, these dimensions of God, is what Howard Gardner did. I think in 1983 or so, thereabout. And he talked about how there are 9 types of intelligence.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the closest I think anyone has ever gotten to it. And of course, I'm sure it's way more than 9. Way more than 9. But if you go look at the 9 types of intelligence, the linguistic intelligence, the mathematical intelligence, the anesthetic body kinesthetic intelligence, and spatial intelligence, and all of these intelligences, what you would realize is that in school, the only intelligence ever measured is mathematical intelligence. That's the one they called you. That's the one they called you a failure about.
It's interesting because honestly, you're a PhD holder, and this is one thing I love. And I've been a teacher in the classroom, teaching maths and economics to 16 to 18-year-olds for 15 years. So I consider myself, as you would as well, to be quite academic. I'm, beginning a study of a PhD study. I love the book. Yes, I know. I'm going to come and ask for your help because but I want to do it. I've always known, that I want to go that far in my study. I believe in the study and the academic, all of that, but never have I ever thought that the line I'm going is the line that everybody should go. If you don't have that level of therefore, it's just me. That's my thing. Your child who has a passion in another level of intelligence is as relevant.
Yeah.
So the number of times I have parents coming to me complaining about maths, and I just listen to them, and I say, and they know I'm a maths teacher, and they're asking for me, and I listen to them, and I say, how about your child's creative, right? Talk to me about that side. And you can see when they start to talk about that side, they realize, as I just let them talk, the brilliance of their child.
That's the superpower.
It is. But because they focused on the math side of it, they've now taken something away
you feel
from
like the child is dumb.
Yes. And you see, the problem with that is that the child can feel that, can hear that, and they wear that. And it stops them from showing their creative brilliance.
Some people have heard that since they were 12.
Yes.
And now they are 42 and they're still wearing it.
I even want to pick on something else you said, which is about teachers. I'm a teacher, you're a teacher. And there's some of our colleagues, unfortunately, and that have said things to children that are so negative. And my problem now is, you, mom and dad at home, what are you saying? Because your
very
voice,
important.
especially when they're 0 to 7, 9, a lot of us say, your voice
where they're still being programmed.
Yes, your voice is the loudest voice, mom and dad. So my issue is when teachers say something about your child, you then go home and start shouting at your child over what the teacher said. So what you're doing is you're amplifying, the negative words that you may have heard outside, rather than amplifying who they are. The goodness of who they are inside. Yes, we make mistakes. Yes, we have some parts that are not okay, but you cannot be amplifying them at home because your child wears it and thinks that this is who they are. You know what? I have to ask you this. In fact, I even feel like maybe the other ways to find purpose, people should buy a book and find out. So
let them go and buy it.
It's so good. Honestly, I'm so privileged that he has shared, Dr. Sam has shared this 6 ways with me. I'm still going to buy the book. He has shared one now. It's up to him to share any other, but honestly, go and get this book. We have to read it. But let me ask you this question. What are the things that parents, the quick things that parents can do to hinder and stop our children from finding their purpose? It's painful as I ask you this. We'll move to the things they can do to find it, but just a couple of things that you've noticed that quickly spoil this, journey of finding purpose.
Oh God. There's so many, but let's talk about the very first one. Not revealing to your children the source of purpose. It's a very dangerous thing.
Wow.
The source of purpose is not astronomy.
No.
The source of purpose is not even education.
No.
The source of purpose is the creator.
Oh, wow.
So one of the best things you can do for your children is to literally expose them to the source of purpose. In other words, point them to God. And I know this can be hard when you don't have a relationship with God yourself.
Yes.
But when you do have a relationship with God, oh my goodness, you would realize one of the most important gifts you can give to your child, even no matter how imperfect you are, is to point them in the direction of God. Why? Because that relationship with God helps them to bridge the gap between whoever they are and even the negative programming, whatever that may have, and then help them to journey towards the knowledge of God. Remember what I said earlier on, before I formed you in the womb, I knew thee. God had been thinking about us intimately. God is always longing for intimacy with every single one of us. He is omnipotent in nature, that he could be intimate with all of us, 8-point-something billion of us at the same time. All you need to do as a parent is point your child in the direction of God so that they can know God for themselves as their source. Every resource on earth is tied to the source. And when you point them in the direction of their source, that's one of the greatest gifts you can give to them. Number 2 way you can stop them from actually finding their purpose is to actually be that evangelist of the negative voicing and the negative programming in their head. Oh, I love this analogy that I just discovered not too long ago. Right, and I came across it by this weed at the back of our house that was just growing stronger and stronger and wider and wilder as well too, and because we did nothing. And then I realized that all you need to do for evil and negative voices and negative programming to keep propagating and blossoming is to do nothing.
Aye. Oh God.
That's all you need to do.
Do nothing.
But if you want the good to propagate,
yes.
If you want the good to blossom, if you want your flowers to grow, what do? You weed around it.
Come on.
You water it.
Yes.
You tend the garden. And then you start to see the colors. You start to see them blossom. And then you start to smile because you start to see the rewards of your labor. What am I driving at? If you want the negative voices and the negative programming in your child's life to continue to expand and blossom and grow, do nothing.
Nothing. Oh my goodness. Okay, this this part is actually hurting me. I'm feeling the pain. So let's quickly go to the positives they should do. Positives. Oh my goodness. But it's so true. You know, before, okay, actually, there's another thing I have to say.
Yes.
One thing that I find that rules our parenting, which I've tried to talk about briefly, is fear. Fear causes us to control. And a lot of times when we are afraid, we tend to do things with our, we tend to do things that actually make it harder for our children to find their purpose. So we've given you a few things like, let your child know that they have purpose, give them positive affirmation, speak positively to them.
Yes.
Don't amplify the negative around them, but also don't let fear rule your parenting. Fear comes from anything that happens on the outside, the news, the media. Oh, maths is now the new thing. Oh, maths, English is now, whatever, rather than
it's so hard because the parent probably did this what do you call it in Nigeria now, WAEC, the senior school certificate examination. Maybe they did it like 7 times before they got their maths right, or they did it like or they did like 3 times before they passed English. All of a sudden now there's this fear, and now they're no longer living in Africa, right? They're now living outside of Africa, but they now have this massive fear that their child was going to go through the same thing. As a result, they put all these constraints there that ends up hurting the child.
I agree with you. I think that fear causes control that hurts the child. There's one more thing I've picked up just from listening to you, which I think is amazing, and is the fact that if you as a parent don't know what your purpose is, it's very hard for you to point your child into finding their purpose. Yes. Number 2, if you as a parent know your purpose, but you don't have the faith to go in that line, and you're always afraid, and you allow the cares and the fears of the world to hold you back, you are going to put those same cares and fears on your child. So I think just from listening to you, it's very important that parents go and find their purpose and allow themselves live the lives of purpose. Get that book, Purpose in Crisis. Listen to Dr. Sam Ekundayo. He's on Instagram. Please just tell us your Instagram handle again so people can follow you.
You can find me, thank you, Barry. You can find me at Dr. Sam Ekundayo. So Dr. Sam Ekundayo.
I'll put it on the note here because I listen to Dr. Sam a lot. Whenever he's live, I'm there. And that's how I've learned so much. And of course, in his book is, again, the final thing I want to say that would help parents find their purpose. Please tell us about Spin University, because I think that's another way that they can find their purpose. Please talk to us about it.
Yes. Unfortunately, applications are closed right now as we speak. And when this podcast get released, hopefully the second session would have opened. We're operating it like a very serious school, like a school that means business. So that's why we're and before it closed, we had over 200 applicants, which means that we have a lot of work in our hands. But Spain is, the vision of Spain is to raise leaders who are going to find their purpose, maximize their potentials for transgenerational impact and influence. That's literally the purpose of the school. That's the essence of the school. And it's a school that, where we have courses. The major course that we are literally, that we've put out right now is what we call the Purpose and Influence course. We call it PIN 3.100. And it has 3 levels, 6 weeks each. The first level is the level of introduction to purpose. We feel like there's a lot of people who have a wrong conception about purpose or don't even know what purpose is all about. So we take 6 weeks to take a deep dive into what purpose really is. How does it connect to our time here on earth? How does it connect to our gifts, our calling, our ministry? How does it connect to loving people, to loving God, to our source? All these things, we talk about them in the first week. The second week is where we, level is where we begin to talk about discovery of purpose. How do you discover your purpose? And then because it's a school, right? So we go into practical mode to help people find what their purpose is and get clarity and be able to articulate that purpose. So by the time you're done with those 2 levels, you would have found your purpose. You would have gotten some level of clarity. And number 3 is what we call the influence level. So now you've found your purpose. Now you've gained clarity. How do you begin to fulfill this purpose to live a life of influence. That's where we teach you everything you need to know about the steps you can take to begin to literally do something with your gifts in order to fulfill the purpose for which you were born. It's going to be amazing. First session starts on Saturday, this coming Saturday, and I have never been this pumped in my life. Working with, I don't think we are going to be admitting the 200 plus people who applied. We'll probably be admitting just about 40 to 50% of them, but I'm excited. I'm excited, and I see what God is going to do with Spain by God's grace.
It sounds amazing. It's been such a pleasure listening and talking to you. I knew it was going to be amazing. I know we have much more to talk about. Just from listening to you, it's so clear. It is so important, parents. Our role is not just to feed our children, bath them and all that. We have to help them find their purpose. You're right. I love what you said about giving them a compass, because I really believe that their purpose will be revealed to them. We are just preparing the ground, helping and pointing them. That's all we need to do. And we need to take that role very seriously and find our purpose in our lives as well. It's been such a pleasure. Send my regards to your lovely wife, Mrs. Ekundayo, and your gorgeous boys. Oh,
thank you. And mine to yours as well.
I know. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Parenting on Purpose podcast today. Remember to subscribe, leave a rating, and share with a parent who cares. You can follow me on Instagram at abiara.rowley, where I post tips and videos regularly to help you on your parenting journey. Let's do this together for our kids.